over there's your boy,
DJ Triggs.
And together we are Db8 Sports. And how about that, Triggs? How about all those NBA free agency moves that have been made since we were on last week?
Man, it has been crazy. Are we live right now?
Yeah, we should be. I think there's a little bit of a glitch going on. Okay. Yeah, there was a little bit of a hiccup there. Okay, now I got you. You there?
I see it now.
Awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
It was being weird.
Yeah, a little bit of a weird tech glitch there. But yeah, definitely a lot of big moves since last week. You there, Triggs?
Right. DeMar DeRozan going to the Kings. That's pretty. I don't really know how I feel about it. But you do get Harrison Barnes moved as well, so that makes it, I guess, a little bit better. But there was a lot of movement.
Yeah,
a lot of movement.
Absolutely. And I think it was this past week, and we saw both Chris Paul and Klay Thompson leave the state of California to go to two separate teams within the state of Texas. So definitely a big cost-saving move on their part. They will absolutely both double their take-home salaries for home games played in the state of Texas.
Yeah, we like I was thinking about it. You were talking about Chris Paul. Harrison Barnes actually went to San Antonio, which is it's an extra wing player, another vet to go along with Keldon Johnson and those guys. I actually think San Antonio's really putting together a solid team.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, I always had the feeling, and I heard Woj make that reference, that someone is going to want to play with Victor Wembanyama. He is such a unique talent that you have the speed, the shooting, the rim defending, the huge playmaking ability, that he is the future of the league. At some point, players are going to gravitate towards that, and it's really cool to see that both Harrison Barnes and Chris Paul are beginning that trend.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Harrison Barnes really had a choice. I think he was more of a cap casualty just to mix in DeMar DeRozan. Chris Duarte, who was with Indiana a couple of years ago, he's been just getting bounced all over the place. Now he's in Chicago with a couple second-round picks, so that's pretty solid for them. I know we were talking about KCP going from Denver. They brought in Dario Saric. I don't know if that's a big deal, but
it's not as good as Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Yeah, that shooting from KDP is insane.
Right. And Saric is kind of like a journeyman now. I know he had his time in Phoenix, but now my favorite name goes to Detroit, and that's Fontecchio. I don't know if you just like saying that name like me, but Fontecchio went to Detroit, so that was fun.
Oh, is he like a Brazilian soccer player? He only has one name?
No, I think it's Simone Fontecchio, but I just like saying Fontecchio.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's cool. All right. On Db8 Sports, we will deem him unofficially Brazilian, and he gets the one name. That's no debate.
I think he might actually be Italian, but we won't tell him that.
There you go. Nice. I like him.
Speaking of the Pistons, getting Fontecchio, man, they got Malik Beasley. Oh, I'm so upset about that.
Oh, okay. So from us getting a really great player from Detroit in Drew Holiday back in the day, now we send a guy who is actually playing really well for the Bucks to Detroit.
Yeah. And it was $8 million. The Bucks could have done something with that.
Yeah, they can scrounge up 8 mil somewhere. Like, I know those guys, man. Come on.
I was
Yeah.
hoping so, but yeah.
Yeah.
Besides that, I mean, there was a lot of just like small things, like Buddy Hield, the sign and trade from Warriors, and Shake
Yep.
Milton goes to the Nets. Like nobody really cares about that stuff.
Yeah. But I got to admit, though, DeMar DeRozan to Sacramento, that's a thing. That I like.
Yeah, and he's basically just going to take Harrison Barnes' minutes and just kind of go with his own thing. So that's pretty dope.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, Sacramento is definitely one of those teams that was always flirting with the playoffs last season. Now I think they really established themselves that they will be a playoff team come next season. They got great players. Well, I mean, not necessarily great, but they have a strong collective of players and they have really good coaching. So I like the mix that's going on with Sacramento. Plus, that's a city that has one pro sports team. Like, I love seeing that team go all in and really making a push for the playoffs.
Right. Um, I'm just wondering what their depth chart's going to look like. They have a lot of just like, I don't want to say no name guys because I don't want to be disrespectful, but they have like Malik Monk, DeMar DeRozan, Jalen McDaniels, like Keegan Murray. Like to me, those are
Yeah.
they all play kind of the same spots, you know. And Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox are going to play no matter what. So it's kind of what do you do with those other like 5 guys?
But exactly, Triggs, when it comes to building a team that's a championship roster, that's what it takes. You need 5, 6, 7 guys to win it all, and they all have to be a collective. That's exactly what Boston did, and they have that. I see Sacramento building things like that.
But they don't have any point guards though. It's just De'Aaron Fox and like hope for the best.
Oh, ooh. Well, how's Keegan Murray
Yeah.
not a point guard? That guy was scoring like 1,000,000 points back in Iowa.
That might have been the other Murray. This Murray's a power forward.
Oh,
Because there's
okay.
2 of them. Yeah.
Right. They're twin brothers. The one that got
Yeah.
drafted to Sacramento is by far the better scorer that I know.
That might be true. But yeah, he's a big though. I mean, he's 6'8".
Okay.
Kind of plays power forward because I know they're not going to play Trey Lyles over him. But like
Sure.
their point guard depth is Devin Carter, Jordan McLaughlin, and Keon Ellis. I can't tell you anything about any of those guys. So if De'Aaron Fox goes down, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, it's definitely true. I mean, that team, as good of a build as I like those other players on that team, you have to have shooting. If you have guys that are not necessarily big in size, you have to have shooting. So that's something we definitely got to see out of the Sacramento Kings to do what they do. But even despite that, I still like the guys they got, and I definitely see that team at least making the play-in tournament and probably being a top 8 team going into that postseason.
Yeah, I mean, I know the both of us really like San Antonio. So I mean, like if you have San Antonio, Dallas, Houston, maybe Memphis, like the Pelicans, there's a lot of
I'll take Memphis over San Antonio
because then you got Minnesota, Denver. Yeah, me too. But like, I don't know where the Kings, because they weren't in the playoffs this year. I don't know where they fit. You know, maybe the play-in.
Right. I could say definitely from this season going into next season, I think you're going to lose the Pelicans. I think they were a play-in team that didn't make it, or maybe they made it as the play-in team that made that final 8 spot. But I think the Pelicans will be out. I think the Lakers will be out.
No way.
No
The
way on the Pelicans?
Man, the Pelicans just made a move. They got DeJounte Murray. Now you got DeJounte Murray, CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, Zion.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. My bad.
Man, like there's stacked
Do you think we could actually see, though, both the Lakers and the Nuggets get bounced out?
But they got Daniel Tice too.
Okay. But do you see that possibly the Lakers and the
yeah.
I don't see
Lakers
the Lakers
were playing, so like
yeah, they're out.
Like I'm just I'm not sure about them either, to be honest. Like I'm looking at the standings from last year. So Houston, Utah, Memphis, San Antonio, and Portland didn't make it.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, maybe those teams don't make it. So yeah, we'll see.
I mean, that was last year, but like maybe Houston goes in. I like Memphis going in, maybe San Antonio, but then who do you kick out? Like the Clippers, maybe.
Oh yeah, that team sucks. Get them out. Get both LA teams out. Yeah, the only team that I see making a legit shot. Yeah, the only California team that I see making a legit shot in the postseason is Sacramento.
Yeah, that's solid.
Yeah, I just think the other three teams are further back. I think Golden State is closer to Sacramento than the other two, but man, both those LA teams are much further back for sure.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. We just take out all the LA teams, all the California teams except Sacramento.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's no debate right there. So I like that. I think that could definitely be a thing. And again, too, I think a lot of people are forgetting how good Memphis was back when they actually had everyone playing for them. And now that they did make that transaction for Marcus Smart, I think they're going to be a very interesting team. Plus, they brought in Zach Edey. So they got some cool things that they can mix in with that team. I think that's a really fun team that we're actually going to see a lot of next season. And people are going to be woken up by that and be like, oh, yeah, we forgot about Memphis. And I think Memphis, to me, is definitely one of those teams that should make it in that solid group of 8. Maybe they're a 5 or a 6 or a 4, somewhere in there. But that's kind of how I think it's going to play out. I think we're definitely going to get the shocker of losing the shooting of Denver. And like, honestly, if Denver loses Jokic or Murray, which is very, very plausible, I think that team absolutely just tanks and really goes on a windfall of really having trouble to win any games. And losing a shooter like Pope, you can't really gain that back. So between that, they've lost a few other players here and there along over the last few seasons that can really shoot well. I am really concerned about Denver.
Right. And that's the big problem. Like Denver didn't really do anything to make their team that much better. I brought up the Dario Saric, but like at least Memphis, yeah, they had a lot of injuries last year, but now with all those injuries, they have so many guys that got to play last year. Like we got what was his name? Gigi Jackson played last year. Vince Williams Jr. played last year. Scottie Pippen Jr. played last year. So now you're bringing back Ja Morant, Marcus Smart, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson, and like you said, Zach Edey at center. Like they are stacked.
Yes, they are. Yeah, I like that team. Good coaching. The coach is a former assistant of Mike Budenholzer. I think it was when Budenholzer was at Atlanta. That's when their current coach was coaching alongside him. So I like the mix they got going in Memphis. I'm with you. I think that's a cool team to go with. At some point, as I get closer to the NBA season, I definitely want to do something like I do with the NFL, where I bet all of the divisions. And I know divisions aren't like really that big of a thing in the NBA. To be honest, I don't think they mean anything. It would be fun to pick those divisions. They are kind of separated, but yeah, it's something I'm going to look into a little bit later in the year.
Right. I mean, some of these divisions are pretty stacked. I'm not gonna lie. Like the Atlantic has Boston, New York, Toronto, Brooklyn, and the 76ers. Like,
wow,
that's 3 of your top like 4 or 5 teams in the East.
Is there like anything that they would actually do in the NBA to make divisions matter? Like, there's nothing like if you win your division, you're in the playoffs, right? They actually don't mean anything. They're more of like a scheduling thing.
That used to be a thing. I don't think that's a thing anymore.
Gotcha. So it's just conference divided, and you roll with it.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Yeah, basically. I mean, at least Milwaukee has the Central Division locked up. I mean, Chicago, Detroit, Indy, Cleveland.
I'll disagree with you on that. There's 2 teams right there that will definitely give Milwaukee a run for the money. And one went further than Milwaukee.
I know you really like Indiana, but
I do.
But if Giannis played last year, they would have killed Indiana.
I do agree with that. I definitely agree that Giannis totally makes a difference. And I am eager to see how that matchup is with both Damian Lillard and Giannis in the mix on that. But again, too, I mean, the Bucks are aging, and there are no guarantees that come in the playoffs this upcoming season that both Dame and Giannis play and don't have issues again. So seeing the youth, seeing the speed that Indiana has, regardless of who's out there, I believe that team will absolutely make it to the playoffs. And I think they will go on a nice little run again. And Rick Carlisle, that's one of the best coaches in the NBA right there. So I believe Rick Carlisle will carry that team somehow, some way.
Yeah, I mean, they got swept by Boston, so like.
But they could have been up 3. They could have been up 3-1.
I think
they could have been up 3-1 on Boston, and they just fell apart at the seams.
Yeah, the coaching. He didn't have them ready. I guess I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think that to me that's more the youth factor, especially that game 1. That them losing that game just snowballed into every other event that came after that. I mean, I felt there were 3 instances towards the end of game 1 that if they would have held on to whatever they had to do at the end of that first game, that they could have gone on to win that game. But when you lose that game in that fashion, it just becomes a snowslide that you can't stop anything else after that. And then when you get into those situations again in another game, then that pops up in the back of your mind and it happens again, which it did. And then it happened again in game 4. And it's really unfortunate. I mean, they had over a 90% chance of winning each of those 3 games that they lost. And it is what it is. But I think another year is definitely going to help them. How far they go with that, we'll see. But I think they are one of those teams that is driving that momentum of the newer teams in the NBA that are having success. I think they are going to have success with speed and defense. Indiana doesn't have the defense side, but they definitely have the speed. So I if anything to work on with especially Carlisle coaching that team, it has to be defense. So I think they'll have that. And I think Cleveland is another team that should do really well this year as long as their guys are healthy. I mean, that's a younger team, but they kind of got bit by the injury bug as well as Milwaukee. So we'll see.
Yes. See, the only problem I have with Indy is like they didn't make their team any better. And they kind of like ran into that buzzsaw of Boston. So like Philly got better. Milwaukee added a few pieces that I feel like made them better. Like Cleveland's the same thing. Like, if they didn't do anything to get better, they're just like, oh, let's keep running it back.
Exactly. I mean, I am with you that, adding Paul George makes Philly better, but does it make them better as a team in the Eastern Conference? I don't think it does. I think bringing in Paul George and Joel Embiid, I think is the worst thing possible for a guy like Tyrese Maxey. I think if Maxey had a guy like maybe a Halliburton, or like we were putting his name out there, like a Russell Westbrook, I think they need guys with momentum and speed, not guys who are kind of lumbering, can shoot really well in both Paul George and Joel Embiid. But there's like, they both, to me, both Embiid and Paul George have this attitude that when they get down in the dumps and things aren't going well, like they're stuck. They will not pull themselves out of it. Like it gets bad. It gets bad quick. And I think it's a bad situation to have those guys together, just like Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Like, is there any kind of excitement there? Is there any kind of like, we can just go toe to toe with anyone? I don't see that. I think this is a Philly team that will have more than likely one or both of those guys not playing much. I think one or both of them will both get struck by the injury bug over the course of the season.
I mean, with Paul George, when him and Kawhi played together, I mean, they got up to like the 4 seed last year. The big problem I see with Philly, though, or no, I take that back. The good thing I see about Philly, like they brought in Kelly Oubre, they got him back.
Sure.
Then they brought in Eric Gordon, who's a veteran shooter, can light up the scoreboard. Caleb Martin is there now. And they drafted
that's big.
Jared McCain. And then on top of that, one of their major problems was rebounding. They got Andre Drummond. Like, I think they really shored up their bench.
Actually, now that you say that matters. I do not know those kind of moves like you do, and that's no debate. Like, that's awesome. Yeah. Those moves right there,
just those handful of guys. Yeah, that's an 8-man rotation, and by the time you get to the playoffs, you're probably down to 8 or 9 people. That's a solid team.
That's a solid team. And the thing is, too, like back when we saw Nick Nurse as a playoff contender in the playoffs, Nick Nurse ran his Toronto Raptors as one of the few teams that he had about 5 guys scoring close to like 20 points a game. That's impressive. I mean, he might be able to pull that off with that kind of roster, or at least get maybe 2 guys who are like mid-20s and maybe another few guys who are kind of in the upper teens for sure. I could see Nurse pulling that off.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. It's like
Kelly Oubre, Eric Gordon.
Yep.
And Caleb Martin can all score double digits.
Absolutely. I think that's a great mix of guys they got there, and I'm with you on that too, man. Like, Andre Drummond is one of the best rebounders ever, and he is one of those guys too. Like, that might be his strongest thing on his stat line is rebounds, and it's really impressive. I mean, I remember seeing a game last year between the Bulls and the Bucks, and man, that Drummond guy, like, he was probably he may not have been the highest scorer, but he was the guy that was giving the Bucks the toughest time to deal with because of how great he is at rebounding.
Right. I agree. Like, I don't understand why that guy doesn't have a deal every year, but I have no idea.
Yeah, a guy like Drummond to me is absolutely critical, regardless of what team it is. I mean, like, even put it this way, like, even if a team like Boston didn't have that kind of shooting from Porzingis, I think they would still be just a monster if you had just a monster rebounder like Andre Drummond. That's how awesome that guy plays. He's out there all the time. Like, that guy doesn't get hurt. He probably does, but he plays so many minutes. He's committed. I think he would be like kind of, if he weren't playing in Philly, he would definitely be like the perfect kind of Nick for a guy like Tom Thibodeau. Like, he loves guys like that. So, actually, that's a really cool spin that you have on Philly. I like it, man. That's really, really cool. I'm with you. I think Philly is a absolute contender at that point with what you said. Plus Nick Nurse, that is absolutely one of the best coaches out there. And I know the NBA has a lot of great coaches, but seeing Nick Nurse build that kind of staff build that kind of lineup is pretty cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of moves that are still being made.
Yeah, absolutely. So with moves
I don't even know if that's
made,
a full team.
True. That's fair. So with moves being made, I say we begin making our move to football. How about that, Triggs?
Whoa, left field. I wasn't
left
ready.
field. You weren't ready for that. I mean, I am sporting the beautiful creamsicle, and I do love me the creamsicle, even though I'm not a Buccaneer fan. I mean, maybe somehow in some weird affiliation because of John Gruden back in the day, but I do love the creamsicle. So I'll be honest, Triggs, when it comes to that division, that is probably the only team in terms of fantasy that I really want any amount of players or a defense from, because I think that team has the most continuity and the most legit players of any team in that division. There's a lot of question marks I have with the other teams.
Yeah. That I was gonna say, like, the other teams, I'm not even sure if they're teams yet. Like,
to me, like Carolina feels like they're an expansion.
I don't even know what to say.
Yeah, and honestly, in my lifetime, at least half of that division is an expansion team. In our lifetime, like half of that division is an expansion team. Tampa Bay was an expansion team probably a little bit before you and I were born. And the Saints, they just kind of flounder. Like, unless Drew Brees is there doing his magic, the Saints have been a very bad franchise for most of our lifetime.
Yeah. I mean, except when, like, they had Deuce McAllister and Ricky Williams? It was good times.
Deuce McAllister, Ricky Williams. I even go like way back, I would say like late 1990s, after former backup quarterback for the Green Bay Packers became a starter for the Saints for a little bit in Aaron Brooks.
Aaron Brooks.
He was actually, he was a good quarterback, man. Green Bay had like this amazing run of like backup quarterbacks between Aaron Brooks, Doug Peterson, Mark Brunell, Kurt Warner, sorta, if you want, by affiliation. I mean, he showed up for practice one day and got cold feet, and then the Packers cut him. Like, stuff like that is pretty cool.
Yeah. Matt Hasselbeck.
Matt Hasselbeck. Holy smokes. Brett Favre had like 5 of these guys behind him. Holy smokes. That's wild, man.
And then, I mean, he even had like Ty Detmer back in the day. Like, he had a squad.
Yeah. I know there was.
I know he was
that
like
guy,
a starter for like San Francisco.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I think there was even that guy from the Bears. I want to say, kind of a personality guy. He was kind of cool. I forgot the guy's name, but I know Miller. He was there. Jim Miller. Yep. So yeah, pretty really, really cool backups that Green Bay's had over the years back then. So yeah, it's pretty neat. But yeah, like it's really unfortunate because when we were talking about doing the NFC South today, and I definitely wanted to go in and kind of showcase, like, as bad of a team as they are, like, why I believe in some certain aspects of the Carolina Panthers. And I'll be honest, like, I really think the only one that I would want to take a chance with because of his unique position. And I think when it comes to fantasy, especially even playing like best ball or daily fantasy leagues, you really need to keep an eye on slot receivers. So, like, everyone loves wide receivers. I know everyone loves the big names, but typically when people build their teams, especially for fantasy, they only want to build a roster made of wideouts. Well, yeah, they can do really well. But when it comes time to like make really clutch catches, get that yardage on third downs, make a nice route in the end zone, you need a guy that's a slot receiver. And to me, I would definitely take a late round flyer on Adam Thielen.
Okay. I
Yeah,
I seen what you were leading at first. I thought you were gonna say Tommy Tremble at tight end, and I was like, whoa, can't do that.
whoa!
No
Can't do
Tommy
that.
Tremble.
Yeah, that's no debate, man. No Tommy Tremble on this show. Well, we'll have to make a blue shirt as our collection shirts when we make those. No Tommy Tremble, and it'll have to be in teal and silver. So
No
yeah,
Tommy.
no Tommy Tremble. That's no debate. There is one
Now
other
the
player for
one
the team.
player that does
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
one player that does catch my attention, because I was not an Adam Thielen believer, and he fell off hard by the end of the season.
He did.
Deontay Johnson, the new addition at wide
Yes.
receiver. A
Yeah.
big time threat, big yardage. I kind
Absolutely.
of like him.
Yeah, that's definitely a guy. And the thing is too, like in terms of
There,
separation, I know when you look at like super
wide
advanced NFL metrics, Deontay Johnson is like
receiver
the best in the
room is
NFL
kind
at
of
that.
nice.
It is. It is definitely kind of nice. I mean, I think now Bryce Young has those weapons that he can at least deal with, and we can at least see what he is going to work with. And does he have that ability to truly step up as an NFL quarterback? We did see his progression improve last season. So that is a plus on his side. Like he started terribly for sure, but he definitely got a little bit better as the season went along. So for being thrown into the fire, literally, and working off Adam Thielen and then probably trailing off because he's probably trying to work his other progressions, so be it. But you have Deontay Johnson who gets excellent separation. You have Adam Thielen in the slot. And then the guy that I'm really excited for, but I clicked his name, I saw a letter next to his name, and you don't like seeing letters next to guys' names when we're in July. But Xavier Legette, I know people thought he would be a borderline second round player. I thought he was even better than that, and so did the Carolina Panthers. Carolina brought Xavier Legette as a first round talent, which means they feel that he is so good that they are willing to exercise that 5th-year option on Xavier Legette when it comes to that. And I think they would be very smart in doing so. However, for us in fantasy this year, he is already having hamstring issues out of the gate. That's kind of a bummer. I think for me, I would like to actually see the progression of Xavier Legette. Plus, he's playing alongside Deontay Johnson, Adam Thielen. So he does get that number 3 coverage, kind of like a Rome Odunze is going to get. But Xavier Legette, like, man, you check his film, man. Like, his tape is like insane. Like, he's up there with the Marvin Harrisons, the Garrett Wilsons of the world. His catches are insane. And plus, like, the guy went to South Carolina. He's getting balls thrown to him from Spencer Rattler, which is good. But, like, that's it. It's South Carolina. Like, they're an SEC team, which is even a shocker. So I give Carolina props on Xavier Legette. But in terms of fantasy, I might just want to hold the brakes this year and just watch him grow and progress. He might be a nice free agent addition throughout the season is what I'm thinking.
Maybe a dynasty pick. I mean, first round talent,
absolutely.
32nd pick by Carolina.
Yes.
6'3", 227. That is a solid piece of man right there. And I don't even know how else to say it, but right. Wow.
That's no debate. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. I was pretty
not trying to knock Adam Thielen, but if he doesn't make it through the whole season again, I mean, he's getting up there in age.
Yeah.
Xavier Legette might be the guy.
Yeah, Xavier Legette could be that guy. I think he's that kind of guy that would be a talented route runner and could work his way into the slot if they do that and then bring in another wide receiver. The biggest thing that we have to keep in mind with Carolina, and like, yeah, everyone wants to say Carolina's a garbage team, expansion team, the owner sucks. I get it. But the thing that we have to realize with the Carolina Panthers is their head coach, their offensive play caller, who is now, to me, one of those excellent offensive play callers in the NFC, is Dave Canellis. And Dave Canellis was the OC last year of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense really did some special things last season. So now that Canellis is running the show, he's going to bring in more offensive weapons, guys he likes, guys he's seen, and make things more able for his quarterback, just like we've seen Stefanski in Cleveland or the head coach of Minnesota do. Like, they're trying to bring in guys that they know that can succeed, or at least see what their ability is with the weapons they have around them to gauge, is this guy good enough?
Right. The only other thing that I kind of like about Carolina, and this might be a situational fit, and no, I'm not going to say Bryce Young, but he might actually be better this year. The biggest thing to me is Carolina, believe it or not, was the number 3 passing defense in the NFL last year. So
that's pretty wild.
Yeah, there might be some teams where maybe they play like the Saints, and the Saints don't really have a great pass thrower of the football, Derek Carr.
Right, exactly.
You know Derek Carr very well.
Yeah, and he is not a good thrower of the football.
Things like that. Kirk Cousins is going to play in it. Who knows how Kirk Cousins is going to play? Who knows how Baker Mayfield is going to play now that he's got money? So Carolina might be a situational defense that you could play.
Absolutely. And in terms of drafting, if we look at the defense for Carolina in fantasy, last year Carolina ranked third worst. So they were averaging about 16 fantasy points a game last season. And if we look at where you can get Carolina's defense right now, if we're looking at this right now, just from an average snake draft for the moment, they are going dead last. You can get Carolina whenever you want. Looks like they're going pretty much in the end of a 15th round of a 10-team draft. So you can totally get Carolina whenever you want. It's kind of shocking. On the other team in their division, Atlanta, is going at the exact same rate, and Atlanta now has a defensive-oriented coach in Raheem Morris. So you would expect that defense to possibly improve, but I don't know how you feel about this. To me, Triggs, I think Atlanta, especially defense and offense, like, I don't want to play with that because, honestly, I think the offense is going to be a hot, steaming pile of garbage.
Yeah. I mean, Bijan Robinson,
like, worse than Carolina,
probably going to knock it out of the park. Yeah. They have a lot of names.
They do. They have Drake May.
Names you know.
Yeah. Bijan
Drake
Robinson.
London, Darnell Mooney, Rondell Moore, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts. Like, all of these names, but I don't know if there's enough ball to go around to everybody.
Exactly. And, like, to me, I still haven't seen Drake May, like, truly emerge as that number 1 wide receiver yet. Kyle Pitts, to me, has been an absolute disaster. I never liked Kyle Pitts since seeing his film at Florida. I always felt every catch that Pitts made was on his highlight reel was, like, wide open. And to be honest, the coverage for the majority of the SEC that wasn't Alabama or Georgia was just flat garbage. So I didn't believe that Kyle Pitts was anything special, and he has thus far proven that. I know the quarterbacking hasn't been that great, but even then, like, okay, well, then why isn't Kyle Pitts even having good games? Because a lackluster quarterback is going to rely on the tight end, and he's going to rely on a big guy like Drake London. Neither of those things have really come to fruition. And Bijan is phenomenal, but even what he did last season was very minuscule.
Right. And I mean, last year they were the 9th ranked rush offense with Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson.
Yep.
But do they get that many carries and that many yards now that you actually have a quarterback that can throw the ball more than 5 feet? Like
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins he can fling the ball a little bit, but their passing last year was basically non-existent. They were one
Right.
of the worst offenses in the league. And I mean, I think they were 9th worst, 10th worst, something like that, in points per game. So will they be running the ball more? Probably
Right.
not. They're probably going to be throwing the ball more.
And I think the thing is too, I know you're really great at doing a kind of a rabbit hole deep dive in the clutch. But who is the offensive coordinator for Atlanta? I really like. I think that's what's going to tell us the story, because what we've seen for pretty much all of his career, for as long as I can remember, I have never seen Kirk Cousins develop a pass catching running back. And he clearly has a pass catching running back in Bijan Robinson. I think Tyler Algier is more of the power back, and Bijan is more of the tailback. So I see that kind of mix happening. And I'll be honest, like, I love them both. I think Tyler Algier and Bijan are both phenomenal running backs. Excuse me. And I think together that is definitely one of the best running back tandems in the NFL. But where is that level of respect when it comes to secondaries that the Falcons will be playing against? If I'm a defense playing against Atlanta, I mean, I pretty much am going to go cover 1 and maybe even cover 0 in certain moments, because I just don't respect their receiving core. Like, if I put 2 guys on Drake, I can go one-on-one with Kyle Pitts, and then the rest of the guys are okay. I just don't respect this offense from Atlanta.
So the coordinator is Zach Robinson. He spent the last handful of years with the Rams. So he did develop Puka Nacua. He was the pass game coordinator. Not really. This is his first offensive coordinator gig. So he's brand new to the game.
How many years has he been with Sean McVay in LA?
It was from 2019 to last year.
Oh, that's good. Oh, and Raheem Morris is from LA as well.
Yeah, so I mean, they could be completely different on offense.
Yeah.
Maybe this guy learns how to put Kyle Pitts in the offense. But again, you have Darnell Mooney, Rondell Moore, Drake London, Algier, Robinson. There's not enough ball. I know I said that before, but I don't know what Atlanta can do to get everybody on the same track.
Right. And it's not like a scheme like San Francisco, right? Where those receivers, and even Green Bay. So both Green Bay and San Francisco, those receivers, they know how to block. So they scheme up concepts to get those tailbacks and certain kind of gadgety wide receivers outside, and the other guys block and do really well at doing it. I have not seen LA be one of those teams. And I don't know, I really don't see Drake London doing that. And I really wonder about the other 2 smaller wideouts that they have for the Falcons. Yeah, this is definitely an offense to me that really, to me, I'm questioning. And I think you're spot on. There's not enough ball to go around. And when you do want to mix it up, can you really rely on Rondell Moore and Kyle Pitts to make their catches in the clutch? I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, and then even to go to their defense, I wouldn't touch their defense at all.
Yeah.
They were kind of middle of the pack when it comes to passing and rushing.
Okay, secondary
points allowed. They were just kind of middle of the pack. So I wouldn't touch them with a 10-foot pole for defensive wise.
And if they can't get the ball rolling on offense, that defense gets sent back on the field quickly.
Yep.
And they're going to get more exposed. And like any defense in the NFL, if you keep pounding that defense out there on the field, even a defense that's as good as like the New York Jets, cool. If you're out there for 35 minutes a game, you're actually one of the worst defenses in the NFL. And I could easily see that happening with Atlanta.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So we got that going on with Atlanta. We've covered the Carolina Panthers. What about the New Orleans Saints?
Ooh,
I don't know. I'm kind of with you. Like, to me, this is another team that's a hot pile of mess. And I'm very shocked, even like right now, when it comes to live drafting trends and how high some of these defenses are getting picked. The Saints are going at the beginning of round 14 in a 10-team draft, and they are going 10th overall. And I think they are just garbage. I think everything about the Saints is pure garbage, except for maybe Alvin Kamara.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of where they are when you rank them passing wise on defense and total yards. They're about 10th. They gave up like the 8th fewest points.
Okay.
So like the defense is really solid. But just like you said, offensively, unless Derek Carr becomes, I don't know, the second coming of Tom Brady, I don't really understand how this offense works. I really like Jamal Williams, but he's a backup running back to Alvin Kamara. Like he got loose. He totally got loose at the beginning of the season when Kamara was he suspended?
Suspended, right? Yeah, he was suspended from the All-Star game in Vegas a few years back.
And then like Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed, like that's basically all they have.
I mean, but those guys are great.
Yeah,
but you got to get the ball to them. And like I've seen, like there are many times where Derek Carr struggles like this, and like I'll be honest, like I think Derek Carr is now easily one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. And I'm glad my Raiders moved on from him, even though when we had literally no one behind Derek Carr, I mean, I would have gotten rid of him 4 years earlier than when we did. But Derek Carr to me is easily like, I like, it sucks that I got to say this, but I'd even take Daniel Jones ahead of him because I know of the crazy speed factor that Daniel Jones brings. And if I look at, we'll be talking about the New York Giants. The New York Giants actually have a cool wide receiving core. There are multiple guys. I mean, I can actually name 4 receivers from that receiving core. You and I can barely name 2 on the New Orleans Saints, and the quarterback is a question mark. I can name 0 tight ends on the Saints now. Like Darren Waller is. Wait, I mean, I know there's your guy. Actually, never mind. We do have a few. We have
Johnson.
Right. Yeah. Oh. I know that's your guy, and plus we have the human Swiss Army knife, aka I call him like he is the Swiss Army knife. Taysom Hill. He's awesome, man. Like I love seeing Taysom Hill play. It's pretty interesting. I mean, that might be the one saving grace is like if you do pick the Saints, especially in our league, which will be a team quarterback league. Like you get those Derek Carr points and you also get Taysom Hill points, or is Taysom Hill technically a tight end?
He's listed as a backup tight end and a 4-string quarterback because they got your boy Spencer Rattler out there.
Oh my goodness. Now that is interesting. I actually did not know what team Spencer Rattler went to.
Yeah.
That is cool. Okay, yeah. Actually, I think if you give that team a little more time to develop, and maybe if you just say screw it, like Derek Carr is not the guy, man. Like he's been the guy that's kind of been in adverse situations. I could see him making something work there, but they got to go to him when like the time is right, and hopefully it's not an injury, but it might take that to get him in. And I mean, there are some nice receivers. Is Can't Guard Mike? Is he still there? Is Michael Thomas still a New Orleans Saint?
No. I don't know where Michael Thomas is. Let's check.
Michael Thomas should be on an NFL team. Like, I know the guy's had some weird drama, but I like Michael Thomas. I believe he is some kind of sibling, or like he's got some kind of family ties with Keyshawn Johnson.
That's his nephew, I think. And no,
okay.
he is a free agent.
Holy smokes, man! Yeah, I would think there's got to be teams in the NFL that would kill for a guy like Michael Thomas at some point.
See, this is the problem I have with New Orleans, right?
Yeah.
Their number 4 wide receiver is Equanimeous St. Brown.
Yeah, he's the younger brother of Amon-Ra, and he is nothing like Amon-Ra.
Oh, I know. As a Packer fan.
You saw him. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you saw him. And like, honestly, like, he is nowhere near close to like the 5 wide receivers that Green Bay has now.
Yeah. I mean he's not even close to whatever they have. Like, they have A.T. Perry, Bub Means. I don't even know who that is.
I don't know who that is. Yeah, I do not know who that is. To just kind of tell Michael Thomas he's not good enough, and you can't figure out any kind of deal with him. It's like, man, that's a bad look. That is a bad look for New Orleans. And honestly, you know who I could see really taking him? I think he would be an absolute weapon on that team within that division. I would actually really, 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 and I think he'd be a great mentor to the current number 1 on the team. I think Michael Thomas would be an excellent addition to the Atlanta Falcons.
Oh, boy.
And I don't think that would cost much either. I think you could pull that off, take off Rondale Moore. And Rondale Moore, he's actually really good in the slot as well. So you can pair him and what's his name, Darnell Mooney. You could like really mix those two up in really cool schemes. And considering what we know that OC for the Falcons did in LA with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, that could actually work out really, really well with those guys. So I think if you have 2 bigs outside with Drake London, Michael Thomas, and Kyle Pitts, now we got something. Now we definitely have something on offense. Whereas right now it's just kind of weird with the mix that Atlanta has.
Quite a bit monkey.
Yeah. Plus, like they're still at I don't even know what the word is, but like Kirk Cousins is always going to feel Michael Penix looming on him. And that will either be a benefit and it'll work in the way that Alex Smith made it work when he had Patrick Mahomes behind him, or I can't really think of the opposite, but it could go badly as well. And again, too, he ruptured his Achilles just like Aaron Rodgers did. Seeing that next season of them post-ruptured Achilles, I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, I agree.
And when it comes to drafting those quarterbacks, I would probably stay clear. If we're talking with either of those guys coming off ruptured Achilles, whether it's Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins, like to me, you're going to have to prove it. I'd rather lose against a player like that than be like working in tandem and trying to ride out my season with those guys at quarterback. Right. So sneaky thing too within this division at quarterback. If we actually go back real quick and look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I thought this was pretty interesting. And when I look at some of I'll be honest, the list of what I'm seeing of these higher end quarterbacks and where they're going, there's, especially in the top 10, Aaron Rodgers is one of them. But there's a quarterback, we'll save it for another time. But there's a quarterback that is right now ranking at number 2 that I'm like, whoa, that doesn't make sense. But when you look at Tampa Bay, and I know they lost Dave Canellis, but right now the trend of Baker Mayfield is putting him at around the 20th spot quarterback-wise. Actually, if this is a 10-team league, Baker Mayfield is going undrafted. And last season, Baker Mayfield ranked, I want to say, right around 10th. Yeah, he did. He actually ranked, Let me switch this up real quick. Here we go. Yeah, so Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers. Okay, he was about middle of the road. So I'd say maybe around like 13th, 14th is where Baker Mayfield landed up, averaging about 16 points a game. I don't know. I think a guy that can get me around that, maybe get in better matchups. I think I'd rather take a chance on that guy at being better than 20th in the entire National Football League.
Right. And the problem I see with Tampa, so I really like Rachaad White.
Oh, that guy's a dog. I was 100% wrong on him last season. I thought he would be a bust. I was like, this guy's a nobody. No, Dave Canellis and Baker Mayfield, they made that guy work. That guy was amazing last season.
See, I thought so too, right? But Tampa Bay was the dead last rush offense in the NFL.
Well, he's Rachaad White is straight up a tailback.
Yeah.
And you're right. They don't run the ball. They might run Baker Mayfield in some like weird scramble kind of thing. But I think the thing they love doing with that offense is to Baker Mayfield, and I saw this when he was a Cleveland Brown as well. Baker Mayfield is a tempo quarterback. He loves to have quick plays, nice outside routes, and he really likes to keep that pace of play going. So, like, boom, let's get 5 yards. Let's get on to the next play. Rachaad White, I have no Chris Godwin, no Mike Evans. Rachaad White, boom, get me 7 yards right now. That's how that offense works. So I think you're spot on that a guy like a Leonard Fournette isn't going to work, but a guy like a Rachaad White who's a shifty tailback, that's exactly how that offense and how Baker Mayfield wants to make things work.
See, and this is what concerns me is Tampa was bottom half. Almost.
Oh, long show, man. Long show.
No, I was like holding in a sneeze.
Oh, that'll do it.
I had to quick like mute and sneeze.
Nice. That was a great audible. That's no debate.
But they were bottom half of the offense or the NFL in points and passing and yards, total yards. So like to me, it's like, yeah, the dink and dunk is what gets Rachaad White his yardage, but they don't score enough. And then a lot of the big scoring plays went to like Mike Evans or Chris Godwin. I am not sure that Tampa's just going to be able to run away with the division like they did, where they kind of ran up the score on teams like a Carolina or Atlanta. This division is just going to be almost like a dogfight until the bitter end.
Yeah, it could easily be something to that aspect. I'll give you a list of guys who it's interesting. Rachaad White is actually just outside the top 10 of scoring last season overall. And he is actually being drafted right now at about 15th, which to me is good. Oh my gosh, wow. Funny, your guy and my former guy, Josh Jacobs, is actually ranked under Rachaad White, and that makes no sense. Like you and I both know, Jacobs should be easily within or right up against the top 5. I'm even shocked. What in the world is Breece Hall doing at number 2? That makes no sense to me, but that's for another day. But like Rachaad White, 15, 12, like I could see him around 12. And to be honest, as a tailback, he actually was around 12th. And when we look at like his numbers last season, like Rachaad White was definitely kind of doing both. I mean, he wasn't like the best power back in the world, but I mean, even in terms of just rushing yards, like he was almost at 1,000. He was at 990. He actually got 4 less yards than Breece Hall did last season. And he had as many touchdowns, unfortunately, as Tony Pollard, who was my first round draft pick and did squat beyond that. So I like the ability that Rachaad White brings as a pass catcher. And if I bring up receiving, he is actually number 3 Boy, that's actually really bizarre. Brees Hall is actually number 1 at pass catching last season. That's to me, that's a huge shocker.
Well, you got to
Yeah.
remember there was no Aaron Rodgers, so there was no throws down the field. It was a lot of dink and dunk to the running back.
Okay. So do you think with that being the case, then Brees Hall's receiving numbers plummet, as does his overall value at number? Like, there's no way I'm going into any league. I'm not even thinking of taking Brees Hall. I don't even care how big my league is. Like, I don't think Brees Hall warrants anything above a 3rd round.
No.
I just don't. I mean, this is a
No.
guy that averaged 13 fantasy points a game. Christian McCaffrey, in terms of pass catching, who is right behind Brees Hall, is Christian McCaffrey, averaged almost twice that with 21 points a game. Like, what are we doing with Brees Hall? Like, that, to me, it just doesn't make sense. And I mean, I think Brees Hall should honestly be in like maybe the 15, maybe the 20s. But man, seeing Brees Hall at the top of certain statistics and overall going drafted like number 1 or number 2 is insane.
Right. I agree. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. But I don't know. I guess the other thing too, like when I look at Tampa Bay, you can always count on Mike Evans. That guy is pretty much a touchdown machine, like a touchdown per game kind of guy. I really, really like Mike Evans. And yeah, looking at his stats last season, yeah, he pretty much did that. He got 13 touchdowns and over 1,200 yards receiving last year. Incredibly impressive from Mike Evans. So he's a good guy, and possibly too. I mean, if you know a team has a good number 1 corner, getting a guy like Chris Godwin can also really help too.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Evans is going to give you 1,010 basically every season.
Yeah, that's no debate right there. So I like it, man. That's pretty much what we're looking at when it comes in terms of the NFC South. That, like, keep an eye on those sneaky good things from the Carolina Panthers. Obviously, a guy like Mike Evans is money. But other than that, like, we got to see some things in that division before we believe with them, before we actually commit to playing with those players on our fantasy rosters.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I don't think I'm looking at anybody in the NFC South to put on any fantasy team unless they literally just fall down the ladder and I'm like, oh, that guy's still there? I'm in.
Absolutely. To me, a guy like Leggett, I think it really does come down to those Panther wideouts. A guy like Leggett, a guy like Adam Thielen, possibly a Deontay Johnson. But again, the price on Deontay Johnson might be too steep to take him. I could see Deontay being like maybe an 8th rounder in a 10-team league, which to me, oh man, I like Deontay Johnson, but I don't think I want to spend that amount of capital on an 8th round for a Deontay Johnson. So I would rather be content with like, okay, cool. That was the 8th round. I missed on Deontay. All right, maybe round 12, maybe round 13, I get an Adam Thielen or a Xavier Leggett. Yeah, now I'm in. Now I'll take one of those guys. I'll probably take an Adam Thielen because, again, he's unique. He's a slot wide receiver. And again, on your fantasy team, get guys who can play the slot because there are going to be weeks where you just have killer matchups in the slot position that you just can't get any other way, no matter how lesser known that player is. Slot receivers do produce. So get them.
Yeah. I mean, just going through all these teams, I don't want any of these quarterbacks. I barely want Bijan Robinson. I mean, like if he's there, I guess I'll take him, but I'm not going to reach too high.
He's too expensive. He's going to be a first. Like I would think 100% Bijan Robinson is going to be a first rounder, and you'll be lucky. You'll be even lucky on some weeks to get a touchdown out of that guy. And it sucks because Bijan is clearly better than scoring a touchdown per game on any given week against any other team because I don't know. Like in my eyes, he reminds me of a Todd Gurley. He reminds me of a Steven Jackson in his prime with the Rams. That's what I see out of Bijan Robinson. But like, so does every other team, and they stack the box, and there's no other legitimate threats from the quarterback throwing the ball. So Bijan does nothing, even though he's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. NFC South, no quarterbacks, no running backs. I might go Mike Evans.
You might go Carolina defense as well
Yep.
on a sneaky week.
Oh, and the Saints defense. But besides that, I mean, if they fall to me, I'll take them as like a secondary. I have no idea, but
right.
I mean, if they're playing Carolina, oh, most definitely.
Yeah, that's true. That's debate. It's no debate. So, yeah. So I don't know. I think that's a lot that we got for today's show. We'll pick up some more NFL divisions and get you through the loop of what's happening leading up to our fantasy drafts coming up next month. So I think that's pretty good for a show today, Triggs.
Yeah, totally,
man. All right, good stuff, man. We'll give you guys an update on that. Maybe some Olympics, some WNBA stuff next week. So
wait. Give a shout out to our boy Christian Yelich.
Oh,
and William
MLB All-Star game.
Made the All-Star game. Let's go.
Exactly. Like, it's pretty cool. Like the MLB All-Star game, like, to me, is actually really enjoyable when it comes to watching the home run derby. Just kind of the romanticism of it, especially with the different kind of venues that MLB goes to, have been really enjoyable. So like the All-Star game coming up will be really, really cool. So like good stuff, man. Even though we're not too into baseball, it's always a ton of fun watching that stuff. So good stuff, man.
Yeah, totally.
All right, man. Well, we'll see you guys next week. I'm Steve Metrics. That's your boy,
DJ Triggs.
And together, that's No Debate.